Today, we're looking at a brown ink by Caran Organic Brown. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. Down below, there's timestamps so that if there's only certain things you're interested, you can skip around to it. But if you've got the time, I would appreciate you checking out the entire video. You can also follow me over on Instagram. And if you like fountain pen ink reviews and are new here, I would invite you to subscribe. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this 11-drawer True Writer with a broad nib to write for a day and to take my notes for this video. This first writing sample is done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Additional papers will show up later. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in bottle form, and they come in bottles like this. Fantastic bottles, really. To keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1, actually that's not the 1.1, that looks like I wrote it in the extra fine or medium. I'm going to skip that part. The extra fine has no feather spread, halo sheen, very nice shading through this writing. Absolutely. 6 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen. It still offers some shading. Look at how quick it gets a little bit lighter. Brown goes from darker into lighter. Some nice through there, not as standout as the extra fine. 9 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both isn't showing a lot of color variation, although we get nice shading in the writing. Tomoe River. No bleeding, minor Tomoe River ghosting. Quite surprising, but it's not too bad here. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some shading even here. The extra fine is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, nice shading. The biggest thing that's happening here is when I'm saying it's the same tone, it's because mostly what we get is the lighter tones going to darker in spots, where this is darker in a lot of areas, showing off the lighter. So when the medium, 9 seconds to dry, so when the medium is darker, that's because of what it's not showing. The medium is darker than the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen. It's not showing any shading to where I can say it's got the same tones. 14 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the extra fine, far left to far right, shows color variation. We got nice shading. The medium shows none, and we didn't get any shading. And Rhodia with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some shading in this writing. It's quite nice. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. Offers some spots of shading, not tons of it. 6 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. The shading is harder to see here. It's dark to mid-tone, opposed to getting light tones. 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the medium shows color variation. The extra fine shows none. The extra fine up here had none, and the medium did have some. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we can see that there's a bit of red that leads into this brown. We see the red at the bottom, which makes sense. It's a red leaning brown. On the very far right of the first chromatography, you see a spot of blue, a very bright blue, which is where some of this shading is coming from. Now the one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And there's really no difference between these two that we're seeing in the chromatography, but the spot of blue, that little bit of blue that's here, is a little more obvious on the far right of this one. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page and how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I would not use this in a note-taking situation because of the amount of blowout that has occurred when I went back 3 days later and highlighted it. Now, water is breaking down and this ink and showing the white of the paper coming through on the bottom right side. Pen Flush is doing everything that water does and nothing more. Now, it only took water for me to get this out of my pen. The 1/3 bleach solution is completely removing it from the paper. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with a realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. I'm also linking a video that shows how I do my testing and my calculations. Caran Organic Brown has a viscosity of 2.01, making it a wet ink. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average those. Now for the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Caran Organic Brown has an average dry time of 9 seconds, making it a faster drying ink. Instead of finding inks that look like Caran Organic Brown, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I went for a nice blue, and I chose Krishna's Christmas Eve. And I know that this video is going live on Christmas, but this is where it went. The second writing sample is done on Fabriano Leuchtturm 1917 and a composition notebook like you would use in science class. This is Fabriano Echo Qua. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 8 seconds to dry. Medium is a little bit darker than the extra fine, not as dark as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 13 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both are showing us no color variation, and we're not getting it. Leuchtturm 1917 paper, with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 12 seconds to dry. Medium is just a little bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen. It is showing some shading. You have to look at the word brown compared to the word the. If you look at the word quick, it starts darker, gets a little bit lighter, and a little bit darker again. 17 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the extra fine shows no color variation. We didn't get any. The medium from far left to far right shows a little. We are getting a little bit in the medium. And last up is composition notebooks, like you'd use in lab and school. Now we get no bleeding, but we do get plenty of ghosting with it being a super thin paper. The medium at the top has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the medium with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 6 seconds to dry. The scrubby shows no color variation, and there was none, and that is all that I have for writing samples. So what do I think of Caran Organic Brown? This is one of my favorite bottles of ink that I've ever purchased. I really do enjoy this ink. I like how it looks on the paper. I like how well it performs in the page. I like the shading that it gives me. Can you tell that I like this ink and I made a good choice in purchasing a bottle? So what nib and pen give the best writing experience with this ink? For me, I don't feel like it matters. In every pen I've put it in, I've always enjoyed it. So this is dealer's choice. If you've enjoyed this video and made it this far, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. And if you didn't like it, give me a thumbs down and tell me why. Thanks for watching.